Welcome back from the green room in the Joint being the main concert hall of the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm sitting here with Drupal royalty, Larry Garfield, aka Krell on Twitter. Hi, Larry. Thanks for joining me to this conversation and taking some time of Hello World, semicolon, right?
Yes.
Thanks for taking some time off your very busy schedule, and let's have a short conversation about some topics I feel you have an interesting stance on, interesting opinions on, and you're essentially...
I have lots of opinions, interesting or otherwise.
Yeah. But the thing, and showed the badge to the camera, it says,
if you can see that, ask me about Drupal 8.
And that is exactly what we're going to do. Yeah. I'm going to ask you about Drupal 8. First of all, how has the process been? Because I'm going to assume that the people watching this know what Drupal is. In case you don't, just go to Wikipedia, type Drupal, or go to drupal.org. It is one of the best open source CMS systems out there, one of the bigger ones. Let's do some name dropping. What are the bigger names using Drupal these days?
Whitehouse.gov.
That's a good one.
I believe Sony BMG.
Yeah. MTV?
MTV was. Yeah. I think they still are. I'm not certain of that. If you're a public radio fan in the United States, then marketplace.org is one actually my company built. Last I heard, somewhere around a quarter of higher ed in the United States uses Drupal. Hospitals are loving it. Publishing loves it.
Government in general.
The U.S. government especially is in love with Drupal at this point.
There you go. If we should have to put numbers or throw numbers at it, how many % of the internet uses Drupal?
Around 2% is what we usually hear quoted. So
that doesn't seem a lot, but that's
1 in 50
huge.
websites. If you visit 50 websites in a day, one of them at least is Drupal.
So
it also Drupal skews towards larger sites. So 2% of the whole web. But if you're looking at Fortune 500 companies or the top million websites, something like that, it's a higher percentage there because Drupal handles large sites really, really well.
Now, the majority of these sites currently is Drupal 7, I assume?
Yes.
So would that be over 90% running Drupal 7?
I'm not actually sure what the breakdown is. I'd say majority.
Yes.
There's still a fair number of Drupal 6 sites hanging on, and the occasional Drupal 5s, although we try not to talk about them.
So now you know Drupal is a big deal, and you have been part of the Drupal community
for a decade now.
A decade.
Yeah.
In IT terms, that's long.
Oh, that's it feels it.
Like, when you see a dog and someone says it's 3 years old, in reality it's 21 human years, it's times 7. In IT, I believe it's times 10. So actually, you're celebrating a century in human terms of...
oh, boy. I'm not yet.
No. So, but I would love to ask you, now that we've done this intro, about Drupal 8. Can you give me sort of the genesis story?
Of Drupal 8.
Of Drupal 8. So, a given point in time, I wouldn't say you got sick and tired of Drupal 7, but you felt that something needed to be done.
So, Drupal has been around since 2001. And, like any project of that age, it built up a lot of craft over time. And architecturally, it was a PHP 4-based system because, it came out when PHP 4 was brand spanking new. And that meant it was built like PHP 4-based systems, where you assume everything's a super global, you've got a lot of functions, very little object orientation, and that, of course, therefore attracted developers who were, preferred that style. That, of course, doesn't scale past a certain point, and the PHP world has evolved, and the language has evolved. Drupal 7 was released in 2011, and shortly after that we started development on Drupal 8, which is how Drupal has traditionally worked. And for the first time, Dries Boytaert, the project lead... I love the way you pronounce his name. It's pretty...
It's close to...
I try to be good about pronouncing people's names.
Yeah, he's really good at it.
Yeah, I can also do one better. Fabien Potencier.
Fabien Potencier?
Yeah.
Indeed. And we'll get to his name. We'll he's dropping Fabien Potencier as a name here. We'll elaborate on that soon in this episode. But continue.
So in any case, Dries decided that he would appoint a series of initiative leads. These were kind of ombudsmen for some general area. So we had one for handling configuration management, one for improving internationalization, and various others. I was the initiative lead for web services, which was based on a presentation I'd given the year earlier in DrupalCon San Francisco.
Which was in
2010.
2010, just as a sort of point of reference.
Where I pitched completely changing the way Drupal handles layout. Turns out, in order to make the changes we need for that, we need to change an awful lot under the hood, which happens to be the same things to change for really do web service as well.
So you reached a point where you were looking for a library that could solve the issues you had when trying to update the layout module or the layout part of Drupal.
Ironically, we never quite got to the layout part. That's happening in Contrib. Everything else happened. But we looked around and said, there's got to be someone who's done this already. We can't be the first project to try and solve HTTP handling.
Indeed.
And in late 2011, there were really two players in the PHP space for that, Symfony 2 and Zen Framework 2. So we put together a team from my initiative that looked at both of them and came back with a recommendation.
Did that team have a name?
Not really. It was just two people. Dick Olson and I feel terrible. I can't remember the other person's name at the moment. Dick Olson is one of them. Thank you both. In any case, they came back with a report and comparing their two HTTP libraries. And Symfony had a slight edge for three reasons. One, its feature set was a little bit better. Two, Zen Framework at the time had a contributor license agreement. And they've since dropped it, which is good. But I wanted to make sure that we could continue to collaborate because I had an inkling that whatever we ended up going with, it was not going to be the end of it.
No, and like having the goal of putting stuff upstream.
Yep, wanted to be able to work upstream.
Between...
And I knew Drupal developers would never have gone for a CLA.
No.
And the other one, we had a public discussion thread about it, and Fabien Pontossier, the Symfony project lead, and Lucas Smith, one of the other leaders in Symfony, were both in the thread talking, explaining things to us, offering to help. Talked to some other Symfony developers online who were very helpful, very friendly. And it really felt like a community that I could connect Drupal people to. I was comfortable with them coming into our queues. I was comfortable sending Drupalers to them. And that really mattered. Again, I had a feeling that more collaboration was going to happen. So we had pulled in just HTTP Foundation. And then our initial efforts to build something crashed and burned, largely because I couldn't make the case. Because it was part of a long stretch of work, but no one could see the benefit of the first pieces.
And people were just looking at the layout thing because that was the point.
The layout thing, or web services, or
but then there were so many layers behind it.
Yeah. We need to modernize a lot of stuff to really do this well. We can't just slap more code on top of what we've got. So I started hanging out in the Symfony IRC channel, and a very nice Symfony developer named Christophe Stoff spent 4 hours after his bedtime, I'm pretty sure, he was in France, explaining to me how HTTP kernel in Symfony worked. And I basically came to the conclusion, what we've been trying to build, you have already built. Well, open source, yay. And so I did a proof of concept implementation, put that out there, and said, all right, I think we should just double down and go all in. And the reception was lukewarm. So Dries had a summit meeting, essentially, at the Acquia offices in Boston in February of 2012, where I was there, Dries was there, Angie Byron was there, a couple of other leading Drupal developers, as well as Fabien himself. And it took about 3 days to just chew through the question, talk about it, whiteboard, and discuss, and so on and so on and so on. Yeah,
techie discussions.
Hardcore nerding out.
Wow.
And the end result was, yep, let's go all in.
And that was before the larger community knew about this.
Yeah. They knew that I had been pushing it, but actually deciding it was made at that meeting. Then DrupalCon Denver, a few months later, 2012. It's like spring 2012 now. Dries in his keynote made the announcement, hey, we're pulling in Symfony Components, we're going to make a lot of radical changes. And here's a video of Larry and Fabien both talking about this. So the conference opened with my head at 50 feet tall on the screen.
And it was like a bomb being dropped, I guess, in the room because no one knew.
Some people knew. We'd had blog posts before that, but not everyone who is in Drupal followed the blog posts. So it was still a big deal. And I spent the rest of the conference with people coming up to me and saying, thank you. This about time. So, after that we took, HTTP kernel and the pieces that connect to that, event dispatcher, the routing components, dependency injection, and so forth, and just kind of shoved that into the middle of the system and started building off of that. And then this wasn't technically the goal, but it was part of my goal. having this clean, object-oriented, well-factored, dependency-injected code base right in the middle of our system.
That you could unit test the way you should be testing it.
Yeah, we can unit test it. I can swap out pieces. I can understand it a lot more easily. Having that just sitting there next to our 15 years, I guess at that point, 10 years of legacy code, it really drove home the point of this is better code. This is better quality. This is a better way of working, which is how the PHP world does work today. And
Composer must have been a big deal there as well.
This is Composer. This is pre-Composer.
Ooh,
This is early 2012, so Composer wasn't really a thing yet. It was just barely starting to come out. And so, having that contrast really helped drive home the point of, hey, we should refactor this thing next to it, because I can't really unit test this class unless I inject this other code into it that it's leveraging, which is our legacy stuff. So I'll refactor that. But now I should refactor that. Now I should refactor that.
And before you know it, you have a new code base.
Exactly. It just snowballed. So at this point, Drupal 8 is a primarily object-oriented system. The only place you should be using functions anymore is in hooks, which are the old extension mechanism we have, which is still around.
Still in there, yeah.
They're still in there, although they're being phased out.
Towards Drupal, are we talking?
Drupal 9, which is still a long, long way away. Don't even talk about it.
Because we're still waiting for Drupal.
Yeah. 8 is an RC1 right now. Should be out before the end of the year. Is there any wood around I can knock on?
Yeah, there is wood. Let's knock.
There we go.
So Drupal 8, you hear it from the man himself, by the end of the year. Now I believe it will be released by the end of the year as well, based on what I've seen and the fact that the critical issues are gone.
Yeah, so our release process, we get down to 0 criticals, and we can ship a release candidate, and that happened early in October. Then...
Was that at the end of DrupalCon?
It's about a week after.
Week after, yeah.
Week after DrupalCon. Yeah.
I personally was expecting it pure from a marketing perspective that they would launch it in general availability there.
It would have been nice, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen around that release, and we didn't want to do that while everyone was kind of busy with the conference.
And that's not the way open source works, right?
Yeah.
Open source says when it's done. Because otherwise you'll force yourself to release something without looking at the quality.
We also have a release schedule that we follow.
Need to maintain,
for making maintenance easier. So release candidate 1 came out in early October, and then I think we have to go a month. We have a new release candidate, I think it's every 2 weeks, and when we've gone a month with no new criticals found, then we can actually ship the final version.
But we're not talking about features or
no
internal
features.
Improvements, it's only bug fixings.
Critical bugs and things that are super duper low impact, and even some of those we're punting. And we want the goal is ship the thing. And it's, we didn't just refactor it. That was actually just the part that I was most involved in, but the system has been heavily overhauled. We've added a lot more systems, a lot more capabilities to the core system.
And you're leveraging more features of PHP if I look at the minimum version requirement, because back
we're up to 5.5.
In Portland, when I visited the DrupalCon in Portland, they were talking about 5.3 back then. So we reached 5.5. So that's a good evolution. Yeah.
So we're requiring PHP 5.5. And also Drupal 7 was really a framework for a CMS. It was a skeleton. It wasn't a full CMS out of the box. And that was by design. That kept the core system light and lean, and then you could add on contributed modules to build a CMS. Drupal 8, we decided to reverse that and take the best-of-breed modules that everyone installed anyway.
Like views, for example.
The views module, entity reference, stuff like that, and just build it into the core system.
And become eventually a competitor for WordPress on that market as well. Even if you have instead of having a framework for CMS, replacing it by an actual CMS, that could make sense.
The framework parts of Drupal are actually stronger than they were before in many ways.
That I believe, and also the headless Drupal part, where
we can consider REST a lot better. Pretty much every aspect of Drupal has improved at least somewhat. So the theming system is now Twig based, and everything is now templates instead of PHP templates, our old system, and some theme functions, and it's kind of ugly. We have views built in, so it's content assembly, so you can define your content structure and then pull out bits and pieces of it by various rules. I want this type of content posted between these dates, edited by this, authored by this user, referenced by this other piece of content. Give me those, and then give me a list of the top 5 or whatever. And you just put that on on a body somewhere, body of a page somewhere, or in a sidebar or whatever. That's baked in. We have a WYSIWYG editor baked in. We're using CK Editor 4, which we actually worked closely with their dev team on. It's very fast, very well integrated, ties into our filtering system, our text filtering system, so you're not fighting with it the way you were in the past. We also are using it for front-end editing, so there's a quick edit feature. So don't use this too much, but if you're on a web page in Drupal, you're editing a node, and you spot a typo or something, you can edit it straight there on the page. Just click Quick Edit, go and make your change, hit save. It's very much like Flickr in older versions.
What I noticed based on what you're saying is that you spend an awful lot of time working on these things, right? And you probably have an employer that facilitates this.
Yeah.
Can you tell us something about that?
So I work for Palantir.net. We're an agency based in Chicago. We do mostly but not exclusively Drupal, and mostly but not exclusively institutional nonprofits, universities, public radio, museums, that kind of thing. And Palantir has been a sponsor of Drupal for a long time. I was on the board of directors for a while. Our current CEO is on the board of directors for the Drupal Association. There's a couple of us who are on working groups. And most of the code I've written has been on my own time for Drupal. But I have done a lot of time just reviewing patches, having meetings, and that kind of stuff on company time. For the most part, they've just looked elsewhere when I've been taking time at work for this kind of stuff, which has been very helpful to just take time. And then again,
it benefits the company having you there as a community guy.
And not just me. There are other people who have been working on core, working on contrib modules. We maintain a number of significant contrib modules. And Drupal 8 is going to make it easier for us to build sites for our clients. It'll be faster, it'll be easier. The new configuration system solves like 2/3 of our deployment problems just day one. So it's an investment in not just PR, but in, we'll be able to build better sites cheaper with Drupal 8.
So everyone's happy.
Exactly.
But you do a lot of presentations. I see you all over the place. You get time off from work for that?
I do now. So I've been presenting in the Drupal world for several years and made the decision a couple of years ago that if we're trying to push Drupal to adopt third-party code, I should probably do that myself and just get out and see other projects, get into larger community. And that was right around the same time that the PHP community really started coming together, really started having a bigger community circuit of conferences. So
yeah, we're hearing lots of background noise. So in a couple of minutes, we'll have a mentalist performing.
Yeah.
Lior Zuchard is his name. And they're doing the sound check here. We're sitting in the green room, so you'll probably hear some about that. Hopefully it doesn't annoy you. I suggest we wrap it up.
Okay.
And we'll definitely have a part 2, right? Where we talk about other topics. But there you go. A very good Genesis story on Drupal 8. And more subtleties than you just read in a regular blog post or hear in a regular talk. I like your view on this thing, and I hope our viewers and listeners can appreciate it too. If they want to know more about everything Drupal 8, where do they go?
I'd say just Drupal.org. We've got information there on the upcoming system. Documentation for developers is being written. There's a lot of marketing information there as well. And download RC1 and play with it. See what you can build with it today.
Definitely.
It's ready.
Do you have a personal blog or website where you advocate certain things? Or
GarfieldTech.com.
GarfieldTech.com. We'll put that in the show notes.
And I also blog at Palantir.net.
There you go. Okay, Larry, let's see a magician. Let's see a mentalist.
Right.
Let's enjoy Vegas.
So I'm going to read your mind. You're looking forward to Drupal 8.
I'm definitely looking forward to Drupal 8.
See, I can read minds too.
So we asked the man, where's his badge? We asked the man about Drupal 8. And if you have more questions about Drupal 8, as he said, go to Drupal.org and test the RC.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, people. We're going to see Lior Zuchard. We're going to see a mentalist. See you next time.